Did you know, in the books, it was Rhaenyra who approached Daemon about how to have fun outside of marriage, and he agreed to show her the brothels of King's Landing. This is because Rhaenyra wanted to seduce her sworn shield, Criston Cole, who in the books only saw her as a child, since that's what she was when he started protecting her. Daemon supposedly taught Rhaenyra all the ways to seduce a man. Mushroom describes lewd tales of them flying to empty rocks and disrobing in front of each other to learn the acts of pleasuring. However, Rhaenyra never slept with her uncle, since she was saving her maidenhead for Criston Cole. Eventually she and Daemon were caught in bed by Arek Cargyle, and this is why Viserys exiled Daemon and forced Rhaenyra to marry Laenor Velaryon, or be disinherited.
Rhaenyra was a bright, precocious, and beautiful child. At the age of 14, Rhaenyra was declared by her uncle, Prince Daemon Targaryen, to be the most beautiful maiden in all the Seven Kingdoms. Rhaenyra had a large bosom but never lost the weight she gained from her pregnancies, and she had grown stout and thick of waist at the age of 20 after her third pregnancy. Unlike Alicent, who despite being older, never gained much weight even after her 4 pregnancies. However, Rhaenyra's heavy weight in the books actually makes her more impressive, because it means that Rhaenyra didn't rely on her looks to always get what she wanted, and instead had to use her intellect and cunning to get men to do what she wanted. Whereas Alicent does use her looks a lot to get what she wants, making her more like Marjorie and Cersei. We learn that Rhaenyra's childbirth was worse. Fire and Blood reads, "When Aegon II mounted the steps of the Iron Throne before 1,000 lords and knights, shouts rang through the hall. On Dragonstone, no cheers were heard. Instead, screams echoed through the halls where Rhaenyra Targaryen shuddered in her 3rd day of labor. The child had not been due for another moon, but the tidings from King's Landing had driven the princess into a black fury, calling down her wrath upon her half-brothers and their mother, the queen, and detailing the torments she would inflict upon them before she would let them die. She cursed the child inside her too, shouting, 'Monster! Monster! Get out! Get out! Get out!' When the babe at last came forth, she proved indeed a monster, a stillborn girl, twisted and malformed, with a hole in her chest where her heart should have been, and a stubby, scaled tail." When the sea snake was dying, his brother Vaemond didn't have his head taken off by Daemon. Instead, as Corley took to his bed, the issue arose as to who should succeed him as Lord of the Tides and Master of Driftmark, should the sickness claim him. With both his trueborn children dead, by law, his lands and titles should pass to his eldest grandson, Jacaerys. But since Jace would presumably ascend the Iron Throne after his mother, Princess Rhaenyra urged her good father to name instead her second son, Lucerys. Lord Corlys also had half a dozen nephews, however, and the eldest of them, Sir Vaemond Velaryon, protested that the inheritance by rights should pass to him, on the grounds that Rhaenyra's sons were bastards, sired by Harwin Strong. The princess was not slow in answering this charge. She dispatched Prince Daemon to see Sir Vaemond, had his head removed, and fed his carcass to her dragon, Syrax. There is a theory Rhaenyra only married Daemon because she was pregnant with his son. So, less than 6 months after the deaths of Laena, Lenore, and Harwin, Rhaenyra secretly married her uncle Daemon at Dragonstone, seemingly because he was the most experienced warrior of his time and could ensure her ascension to the Iron Throne. Septon Eustace claimed the two had wed in secret to prevent Viserys from prohibiting the marriage, while Mushroom suggested that Daemon had already impregnated the princess and it was too long after Lenore's death to claim it was his. The news of their wedding caused a scandal at the court and made Rhaenyra's father livid. King Viserys angrily declared that a wedding so soon after the deaths of Daemon's wife and Rhaenyra's husband was an insult to their memories, and it took some time before Viserys and Daemon reconciled. There is no way Rhaenyra had a romantic relationship with both Daemon and Criston Cole at 16, let alone on the same night. But of course HBO had to choose between a scandalous Rhaenyra affair with either Daemon or Criston, and thought to themselves, why can't we do both? So technically what we see happens on screen might have happened in the books. But for Rhaenyra to be ping-ponging between Daemon and Criston Cole on the same night pushes any semblance of realism. According to Mushroom, Rhaenyra only went with Daemon onto the Street of Silk because she was in love with Criston Cole, and she wanted him to see her as a woman and so tried to learn the arts of seduction with Daemon. However, Mushroom claims that Rhaenyra remained a virgin during these lessons because she was saving herself for Criston Cole. They should have either had this or Rhaenyra trying to seduce Criston Cole, but not on the same night.
Rhaenyra's eldest son Jace was a strapping boy who grew up to become a handsome teenager. He had brown hair and eyes and a pug nose just like his brothers Luke and Joffrey. Luke is described as being skilled in arms, even though the book implied very heavily that Rhaenyra's children are Harwin Strongs. The book never describes Harwin's hair color, and the only strong character we know of that gets a physical description has silver blonde hair, which makes sense for Rhaenyra to sleep with someone who might give her children that look like Lenore, since in the books, Lenore isn't black. Meanwhile, Rhaenyra's two youngest children with Daemon, Aegon and Viserys, have dark purple eyes which look almost black, and silver hair which was so pale that it was almost white. However, Aegon is described as better looking than Viserys, but not as intelligent.
Larys Clubfoot Strong was in the small council as Master of Whisperers when the Greens conspired to take Rhaenyra's crown. After Criston says, Rhaenyra will turn the Red Keep into a brothel. No man's daughter will be safe, nor any man's wife. Even the boys. We know what Lenore was. Lord Larys Strong spoke not a word during the debate, preferring to listen rather than talk. After the decision was made to kill anyone who opposes them, Larys Strong spoke up for the first and only time. "Let us be the first to swear," he said, "lest there be traitors here amongst us." Drawing his dagger, the Clubfoot drew it across his palm. "A blood oath," he urged, "to bind us all together, brothers unto death." And so each of the conspirators slashed their palms and clasped hands with one another, swearing brotherhood. Queen Alicent alone amongst them was excused from the oath, on account of her womanhood. Mushroom claims this is how Rhaenyra tried to seduce Criston Cole in the books after being forced to marry Lenore. The princess went to White Sword Tower when only Sir Criston was there, barred the door, and slipped off her cloak to reveal her nakedness underneath. "I saved my maidenhead for you," she told him. "Take it now as proof of my love. It will mean little and less to my betrothed, and perhaps when he learns that I am not chaste, he will refuse me." Yet, for all her beauty, her entreaties fell on deaf ears. For Sir Criston was a man of honor and true to his vows. Even when Rhaenyra used the art she had learned from her uncle Daemon, Cole would not be swayed. Scorned and furious, the princess donned her cloak again and swept out into the night, where she chanced to encounter Sir Harwin Strong. Breakbones had long desired the princess and lacked Sir Criston's scruples. It was he who took Rhaenyra's innocence. These were the terms the Greens offered Rhaenyra on the bridge at Dragonstone. If the princess would acknowledge Aegon as king and make deference before the Iron Throne, Aegon would confirm her in her possession of Dragonstone and allow the island and castle to pass to her son Jace upon her death. Her second son, Luke, would be recognized as the rightful heir to Driftmark and the lands and holdings of House Valyrian. Her boys by Prince Daemon, Aegon the Younger, and Viserys would be given places of honor at court, the former as the king's squire, the latter as his cupbearer. Pardons would be granted to those lords and knights who had conspired treasonously with her against their true king. Rhaenyra heard these terms in stony silence, mostly because these are rubbish terms. Rhaenyra already has Dragonstone and Driftmark. She would have to give her two youngest sons up as hostages and pay homage to Aegon in King's Landing, where he could easily have her killed. After the Black Council, a hasty coronation was held the next day. The arrival of Sir Stefan Darkland, late of Aegon's Kingsguard, had brought the stolen crown of King Jaehaerys the Conciliator. 300 sets of eyes looked on as Daemon placed the old king's crown on the head of his wife, proclaiming her Rhaenyra, first of her name. The prince claimed for himself the style protector of the realm, and Rhaenyra named her eldest son Jacaerys, the Prince of Dragonstone and heir to the Iron Throne. Her first act as queen was to declare Otto Hightower and Queen Alicent traitors and rebels. "As for my half-brothers and my sweet sister Helena," she announced, "they have been led astray by the counsel of evil men. Let them come to Dragonstone, bend the knee, and ask my forgiveness, and I shall gladly spare their lives and take them back into my heart. For they are my own blood, and no man or woman is as accursed as the kinslayer." Rhaenyra is afraid to face Aegon in a dragon battle with the Greens, despite having more dragons. Lords Celtigar and Staunton urge the princess to fly against King's Landing at once and reduce the city to ash and bone. "And how will that serve us, my lord?" the sea snake demanded of him. "We want to rule the city, not burn it to the ground." "It will never come to that," Celtigar insisted. "The usurper will have no choice but to oppose us with his own dragons. Our 9 must surely overwhelm his 4. "At what cost?" Princess Rhaenyra wondered. "My sons would be riding 3 of those dragons, I remind you, and it would be 9 against 4. I will not be strong enough to fly for some time yet. And who is to ride Silverwing, Vermithor, and Seasmoke? You, my lord? I hardly think so. It will be 5 against 4, and one of their 4 will be Vhagar. That is no advantage." Here is a description of all the dragons Rhaenyra has at her disposal at the start of the Dance of the Dragons. Prince Daemon has Caraxes, and Princess Rhaenyra Syrax, both huge and formidable beasts. Caraxes especially was fearsome and no stranger to blood and fire after the Stepstones. Rhaenyra's 3 sons were all dragon riders. Vermax, Arax, and Taraxis were thriving and growing larger every year. Aegon the Younger, eldest of Rhaenyra's 2 sons by Prince Daemon, commanded the young dragon Stormcloud, though he had not yet to mount him. His little brother, Viserys, went everywhere with his egg. Rhaenys' own she-dragon, Meleys the Red Queen, had grown lazy, but remained fearsome when roused. Prince Daemon's twins by Laena Velaryon might yet be dragon riders too. Baela's dragon, the slender pale green moon dancer, would soon be large enough to bear the girl upon her back, meaning the Greens have 3 dragons they can ride, Vhagar, Sunfire, and Dreamfire, while Rhaenyra has 7 or 6 after Luke's death. Prince Daemon, tried and tempered in the Stepstones, has more experience of warfare than all the Greens combined. Moreover, Rhaenyra's Blacks have 6 dragon riders after Luke's death, and the Greens have only 4 or 3 in the show. However, at Dragonstone, 6 other dragons made their lairs in the smoky caverns of the Dragonmount above the castle. There was Silverwing, Good Queen Alysane's mount of old; Seasmoke, the pale grey beast that had been the pride and passion of Sir Lenore Velaryon; Old Vermithor, unridden since the death of King Jaehaerys; and behind the mountain dwelled 3 wild dragons, never claimed nor ridden by any man, living or dead. The small folk had named them Sheepstealer, Grey Ghost, and the Cannibal. Find riders to master Silverwing, Vermithor, and Seasmoke, and we will have 9 dragons against Aegon's 4. Mount and fly their wild kin, and we will number 12, even without Stormcloud, Princess Rhaenys pointed out. That is how we shall win this war. The Riverlands love Rhaenyra. The book tells us, from the twins rode Sir Forrest Frey, the very same fool Frey who had once begged for Rhaenyra's hand, now grown into a most puissant knight. Lord Samwell Blackwood, who had once lost a duel for her favour, raised her banners over Raventree. Sir Amos Bracken, who had won that duel, followed his lord father when House Bracken declared for Aegon. The Moutons of Maidenpool, the Pipers of Pink Maiden Castle, the Roots of Harroway, the Daries of Dari, the Malisters of Seaguard, and the Vances of Wayfarer's Rest all announced their support for Rhaenyra. Peter Piper, the grizzled lord of Pink Maiden, spoke for many when he said, "I swore her my sword. I'm older now, but not so old that I've forgotten the words I said." And it happens, I still have the sword. Rhaenyra was too scared to go to Rook's Rest or to attack King's Landing. Monken says, this was because of her horror of kinslaying, supposedly, and how Maegor the Cruel had slain his own nephew Aegon the Uncrowned and had been cursed thereafter, until he bled his life away upon his stolen throne. Septon Eustace claims Rhaenyra had a mother's heart that made her reluctant to risk the lives of her remaining sons. Mushroom alone was present for these councils, however, and the Fool insists that Rhaenyra was still so grief-sick over the death of her son Lucerys that she absented herself from the War Council, giving over her command to the Sea Snake and his wife, Princess Rhaenys. Therefore, 9 days after Lord Staunton dispatched his plea for help from Rook's Rest, the sound of leather and wings was heard across the sea, and the dragon Meles appeared above his castle alone, without the support of any other dragons. Did you know, in the books, House Hightower were very arrogant, assuming that the Tyrells and Reach would support Aegon for king? However, Samwell Tarly's house remembered their oaths to Rhaenyra, and so too did Beesbury House, who are trying to rescue their Lord Beesbury, but do not know that he is already dead. The tidings from the south were ominous as well. Obedient to his uncle's entreaties, Lord Ormond Hightower had issued forth from Oldtown with 1,000 knights, 1,000 archers, 3,000 men-at-arms, and uncounted thousands of camp followers, sellswords, free riders, and rabble, only to find himself set upon by Sir Alan Beesbury and Lord Alan Tarly. Though commanding far fewer men, the two Allans harassed him day and night, raiding his camps, murdering his scouts, setting fires in his line of march. This is what Rhaenyra's youngest child with Lenore, Joffrey, and her two youngest children with Daemon are doing in Season 2 of The Dragon. 4 living sons remain to Rhaenyra Targaryen. My strength and conciliation, the Queen called them. Aegon the Younger and Viserys, Prince Daemon's sons, were 9 and 7 respectively. Prince Joffrey was but 11, but Jaehaerys, Prince of Dragonstone, was on the cusp of his 15th name day. It was Jace who came to the fore now, late in the year 129 AC. Mindful of the promise he had made to the Maiden of the Vale, he ordered Prince Joffrey to fly to Goldtown with Tyrax. Monken suggests that Jace's desire to keep his brother far from the fighting was paramount in this decision. This did not sit well with Joffrey, who was determined to prove himself in battle. Only when told that he was being sent to defend the Vale against King Aegon's dragons did his brother grudgingly consent to go. Even though Mysaria did serve as Rhaenyra's Master of Whisperers, there is no indication that her and the Queen ever engaged in any romantic relationships. However, there are reports that Rhaenyra did engage in romantic relations with Laena Velaryon along with Daemon back on Driftmark when they were all newlyweds. So the possibility of Rhaenyra and Mysaria having feelings is not completely impossible, and Millie Alcock did portray Rhaenyra as having feelings for Alicent. Rhaenyra's impressive qualities that would make her a good queen in times of peace mean she is ill-suited to the task of being queen during a time of war. The disrespect from her small council members should never have been allowed to happen, and only occurred because she spent episodes sitting around and not raising armies. Moreover, following Lucerys' death, she wasted days looking for her son's body. When Criston Cole began raising armies for the Greens, she secretly entered King's Landing for a final peace negotiation with Alicent, leaving the Blacks exposed and ill-prepared for one of her biggest mistakes so far, the Battle of Rook's Rest. Rhaenyra had 4 dragons at her disposal, each with a rider. Jace's Vermax, Baela's Moondancer, Rhaenys Meleys, and her own Syrax. Had she just called to find dragon riders like Daemon proposed at the end of Season 1, she could have had 7 dragons against the Greens' 3. Hugh the Hammer's daughter dies because of the blockade that Rhaenyra and her Black faction put up at the start of the war. So shouldn't he blame Rhaenyra for his daughter's death and betray her? especially considering he saw how she let all those other dragon seeds die during the Red Sowing. Also, what is Hugh's motivation for hating the Greens since they did nothing to him? Rhaenyra brushing aside Dreamfire and Tessarion as if they pose zero threat to the Blacks is dumb. In the finale, Rhaenyra speaks with Corlys about the status of the Greens, but she only mentions Vhagar as the dragon to defeat. When Corlys mentions Helena's Dreamfire and Darion's Tessarion, Rhaenyra remarks that Helena does not ride and that Tessarion is too young. But of course Aemond will be trying to convince Helena to ride Dreamfire into battle, since she is one of the largest and oldest dragons in the show. Rhaenyra cannot know for certain that Helena will refuse. Tessarion, though young and small, has taken flight and could also take Rhaenyra by surprise. Daemon and Rhaenyra had no marital rift, and instead, Daemon was completely loyal to Rhaenyra. Season 2 should have opened with Daemon taking Harrenhal and securing the most strategic castle in the realm for his queen as a rallying point for Rhaenyra's forces. Since, in the books, him, Jace, and Luke all flew off at the same time. However, the show had Daemon linger on Dragonstone for 2 episodes, where he caused the death of young Jaehaerys by accident. Meanwhile, in the books, Daemon orchestrated the entire Blood and Cheese event from the Riverlands, which makes him a lot more terrifying than the show version. The show then used Jaehaerys' death to cause a rift between him and Rhaenyra, with Rhaenyra questioning if they're on the same page about her being Viserys' rightful heir. Only then does Daemon leave, which is such a disservice to his book counterpart.
Millie Alcock, the actress who played a young Rhaenyra Targaryen, just appeared in the Supergirl movie trailer, and honestly, she does seem kinda perfect for the role. You can definitely see elements of Rhaenyra in her performance from the trailer, but unlike Rhaenyra, demonstrated some pretty good PTSD, so her performance does look pretty good. Daemon didn't kill his wife, Rhea Royce. This is because, in the book, after her accident, Rhea Royce lingered for 9 days before finally feeling well enough to leave her bed, only to collapse and die within an hour of rising. It would be ridiculous in those 9 days she didn't tell anyone that Daemon attacked her. The showrunner, Ryan Condal, said, Lady Rhea Royce of Runestone fell off her horse and her skull was crushed in the fall. I read that and I was like, that's such a weird detail to include, with no context around it. So I stared at it, and I was like, well, Daemon obviously went home and murdered his wife. But in our opinion, Daemon, the most recognizable guy in Westeros, physically traveling back to the Vale on his dragon and not being seen by anyone makes no sense.
Despite all the Greens' effort to bribe and control the Gold Cloaks of King's Landing, they will always be loyal to Daemon Targaryen. Despite higher pay and promises, the Gold Cloaks immediately betray the Greens once they see Daemon Targaryen flying above the walls of King's Landing, when Hightower denounces them as traitors. So Luthor laughs at him, saying that Daemon gave them these cloaks, and they have not forgotten. Because before Daemon, the City Watch were looked down upon by the High Lords such as Otto Hightower and treated like dirt. But as Lord Commander of the City Watch, Daemon raised them up, gave them gold cloaks, and turned them into a respectable private army. He would also send them money from time to time, even from Pentos, so they would always remain a powerful military. And this loyalty will be repaid in time. Daemon Targaryen is 24 at the start of House of the Dragon Episode 1, and often wears a gold cloak wherever he goes, since he is commander of the City Watch of King's Landing and wielded the second most famous Valyrian steel sword, Dark Sister. Daemon Targaryen is described as dashing and dangerous. Archmaester Gildain wrote that Daemon was ambitious, moody, and as charming as he was hot-tempered. Daemon was a renowned warrior, skilled in the joust, hunting, and swordplay. He was unfaithful to his first wife, Rhea Royce, by taking Mysaria as his paramour, and suspected of being unfaithful to Rhaenyra Targaryen by taking Nettles as his lover. However, he was always fiercely loyal to his brother, Viserys. His dragon Caraxes is called the Bloodworm because it is a stunted dragon with a long neck and wings on his hind legs to help it fly. Daemon's girlfriend Mysaria had skin pale as milk. She was thin and graceful in her youth, but age thickened her body. Because of her appearance and reputation, Myceria was dubbed Misery, the White Worm, by enemies and rivals. While a dancing girl in King's Landing, Myceria became the favored lover of Daemon Targaryen. Around 105 AC, Myceria became pregnant with Daemon's child while living at Dragonstone. Daemon gave his paramour a dragon egg for the child, which angered King Viserys Targaryen. The king ordered Daemon to return the egg and send Myceria back to Lys. On her return to the Free City, she lost the child during a storm on the Narrow Sea. In the show, Myceria's supposed pregnancy at Dragonstone is presented as a lie that Daemon made up.
Daemon Targaryen never struggled to perform in the bedroom, unlike in the show, which is a bit dumb because they make a big deal about how Daemon can't get it up with Rhae Royce, Myceria, and a young Rhaenyra, only for it to completely go away after the time skip when Daemon fathers 2 daughters with Laena and 2 sons with Rhaenyra. Meanwhile, in the books, it is very likely that Rhae Royce was barren and given to Daemon for that express purpose so he would not be able to create any heirs like Maegor the Cruel. And Myceria did get pregnant with Daemon's child in the books, which the show undid. So it was a really weird thing to add and then completely forget about with no explanation or resolution for why.
Episode 3 of House of the Dragon is centered around Daemon's war in the Stepstones, when, in actual fact, Daemon had zero difficulty in conquering the Stepstones. This is what the book says on the matter. Daemon Targaryen and Corlys Velaryon waged war on the Stepstones. Suffice it to say that the fighting began in 106 AC. Prince Daemon had little difficulty assembling an army of landless adventurers and second sons, and won many victories during the first 2 years of the conflict. In 108 AC, when at last he came face to face with Kragus Crabfeeder, he slew him single-handed and cut off his head with Darksister. That's it, a single paragraph. Yet the show dedicates a whole episode to a make-believe struggle that doesn't make any sense, since how would the Triarchy have any hope of defending themselves against Daemon's dragon?
Otto Hightower calls Daemon a second Maegor the Cruel, which ironically is true because if you look carefully, Maegor was always loyal to his brother and twice rose to his defense on his dragon, Balerion the Black Dread. Now, Maegor did war with his brother's children, but so will Daemon because they are usurpers who threaten the existence of House Targaryen by being cronies of House Hightower. The same way Maegor only warred against his nephews because they were too weak to protect House Targaryen from the Faith Militant, who were secretly being supported by House Hightower. Meanwhile, the two conflicts are very similar, and in both cases, Maegor and Daemon are portrayed negatively in the history books, despite always being loyal to their brothers and protecting Targaryen hegemony from Hightower scheming. But this is because the history books are written by the Maesters, who work with the Hightowers. Both Daemon and Maegor had multiple wives.
This is the real reason why Daemon Targaryen married Laena Velaryon. After growing weary of ruling the Stepstones, Daemon flew to Hightide. There his eye fell upon Lord Corlys's daughter, Laena, a maid of 22, tall, slender, and surprisingly lovely. Even Mushroom described her beauty as almost as pretty as her brother. Prince Daemon fell in love with Laena, the singers would have us believe. Men of a more cynical bent believe the prince saw her as a way to check his own descent. Once seen as his brother's heir, he had fallen far down in the line of succession, and neither the Greens nor the Blacks had a place for him. But House Velaryon was powerful enough to defy both parties with impunity. Daemon Targaryen asked Lord Corlys for his daughter's hand in marriage. After killing her betrothed, Daemon wed Lady Laena Velaryon a fortnight later, abandoning his hardscrabble kingdom on the Stepstones. We don't actually know if Daemon said, "heir for a day," and if he did, whether it was a mocking or solemn gesture, since Daemon never confesses to saying it in the book. When word of this got back to the king, legend says that it was the whore sitting in Daemon's lap who informed on him, but evidence suggests it was actually one of his drinking companions, a captain in the Goldcloaks eager for advancement which might be Harwin strong. Viserys became livid. Once his mourning for his wife and son had run its course, the king moved swiftly to resolve the issue of the succession. Disregarding the precedents set by King Jaehaerys in 92 AC, Viserys declared his daughter, Rhaenyra, to be his rightful heir in a lavish ceremony at King's Landing. Hundreds of lords did obeisance to the realm's delight as she sat at her father's feet at the base of the Iron Throne. Prince Daemon was not amongst them, however. This was Daemon's terrifying reaction to Luke's death. On Dragonstone, Queen Rhaenyra collapsed when told of Luke's death. Luke's young brother, Joffrey, swore a terrible oath of vengeance against Prince Aemond and Lord Boris. As the Black Council sat to consider how to strike back, a raven appeared from Harrenhal. "An eye for an eye, a son for a son," Prince Daemon wrote. "Lucerys shall be avenged." Let it not be forgotten, in his youth, Daemon Targaryen had been the Prince of the City, his face and laugh familiar to every cut purse, whore, and gambler in Flea Bottom. The prince still had friends in the low places of King's Landing and followers amongst the Goldcloaks. Unbeknownst to King Aegon, the Hand, or the Queen Dowager, he had allies at court as well, even on the Green Council. In House of the Dragon, why didn't Daemon go and commit blood and cheese himself? He knows the layout of the Red Keep better than anyone else, as we saw in Season 1. He could have easily brought a group of men with him, overwhelmed Aemond, and then fled, essentially winning the war because he could then escape back to Dragonstone and have Rhaenyra deploy all her dragons against King's Landing, and without Vhagar, it would be an easy victory for the Blacks. However, what makes more sense is what happened in the book, with Daemon holding Harrenhal and deploying 2 of his men to take vengeance, and Daemon is mentioned as having friends on the small council who allowed this attack to occur, being Larys Strong, who is theorized as wanting both the Blacks and Greens to wipe each other out. So he allowed this attack to further exuberate the war between Aegon and Rhaenyra, with no chance of there being peace. This is how Daemon plans to win the Dance of the Dragons. In the Stepstones, my enemies learned to run and hide when they saw Caraxes' wings or heard his roar, but they had no dragons of their own. It is no easy thing for a man to be a dragon slayer, but dragons can kill dragons, and have. Any maester who has ever studied the history of Valyria can tell you that. I will not throw our dragons against the usurpers unless I have no other choice. There are other ways to use them, better ways. Then the prince laid his own strategies. Rhaenyra must have a coronation of her own to answer Aegon's. Afterward, they would send out ravens calling on the lords of the 7 kingdoms to declare their allegiance to their true queen. We must fight this war with words before we go to battle. The lords of the great houses held the key to victory, Daemon insisted. Their bannermen would follow wherever they led. When Daemon seized Harrenhal, it served as a sharp reminder to the rest of Westeros of the martial prowess of Prince Daemon and the power of Caraxes, and gave the queen a stronghold in the heart of Westeros, to which her supporters could rally. When Prince Daemon set forth his call to arms, they rose up all along the rivers, knights and men-at-arms and humble peasants who yet remembered the realm's delight, so beloved of her father, and the way she smiled and charmed them as she made her progress through the riverlands in her youth. Hundreds and then thousands buckled on their swords belts and donned their mail, or grabbed a pitchfork and a crude wooden shield, and began to make their way to Harrenhal to fight for Viserys' little girl. The Lord of the Trident, having more to lose, were not so quick to move, but soon enough they began to throw their lots in with the Queen. Daemon seized Harrenhal at the very onset of the war, even before Lucerys died at Storm's End, unlike in the show. This is what the book tells us about its easy capture. Though large parts of Harren's great folly were in ruins, the castle's towering curtain walls still made it as formidable a stronghold as any in the Riverlands. But Aegon the Dragon had proved it vulnerable from the sky. With its lord, Larys Strong, away in King's Landing, the castle was but lightly garrisoned. Having no wish to suffer the fate of Black Harren, its elderly castellan, Sir Simon Strong, uncle to the late Lord Lionel, great-uncle to Lord Larys, was quick to strike his banners when Caraxes lighted atop King's Spire Tower. In addition to the castle, Prince Daemon at a stroke had captured the not inconsiderable wealth of House Strong and a dozen valuable hostages. Daemon's visions delve deep into his resentment towards Viserys for choosing Rhaenyra as his successor. A vision of young Rhaenyra appears before him. Rhaenyra is tending to the lifeless body of Jaehaerys Targaryen, the heir of King Aegon II, who Daemon accidentally caused the death of at the hands of Blood and Cheese. Rhaenyra confronts Daemon about his constant disappearances, causing the Targaryen prince to snap back to reality as he finds himself once again in the Godswood of Harrenhal, shaken by what he had just witnessed. Weirwood trees are known for their association with visions in the Game of Thrones universe. Daemon finds himself then in the company of Alice Rivers, who is thought to be a witch, and in the books will one day be the lover of Aemon Targaryen and supposedly pregnant with his child. This is what Daemon's two daughters with Laena Velaryon are doing during Season 2 of House of the Dragon. Rhaenyra, the 13-year-old daughter of Prince Daemon, was chosen to accompany Joffrey Velaryon to the Vale with his dragon. Known as Rhaena of Pentos for the city of her birth, she was no dragon rider, her hatchling having died some years before, but she brought 3 dragon eggs with her to the Vale, where she prayed nightly for their hatching. Lady Rhaenyra's twin, Baela, remained on Dragonstone. Long betrothed to Prince Jaehaerys, she refused to leave him, insisting that she would fight beside him on her own dragon, though Moondancer was too small to bear her weight. Though Baela also announced her intent to marry Jace at once, no wedding was ever held. Munkin says the prince did not wish to wed until the war was over, whilst Mushroom claims Jaehaerys was already married to Sarah Snow, the mysterious bastard girl from Winterfell. Daemon Targaryen finds himself failing to secure the Riverlands, unlike his book counterpart. The show has had Daemon get into a heated conflict with the Riverland lords and being haunted by dreams and visions of Rhaenyra, Laena Velaryon, and his mother, who for some reason he wants to have with. All this causes Daemon to doubt himself. Also, unlike his book counterpart, Daemon starts to assert his claim as king, hinting at a potential break from Rhaenyra. Alongside Sir Simon Strong, Daemon's initial ally in the Riverlands is Willem Blackwood, whom he manipulates to leverage the ancient Blackwood and Bracken rivalry to gain support. However, the Blackwoods' assaults on Bracken land, seizing women and children to demand loyalty from the Brackens in return for their release, has only alienated the Riverlords. Daemon has also misjudged House Tully, whose family motto is family, duty, honor, which shows him not to be very inept at gathering intelligence before offering alliances. Jean Arryn did not like Daemon, but supported Rhaenyra nonetheless. Your Prince Daemon used his first wife most cruelly, it is true, but notwithstanding your mother's poor taste in consorts, she remains our rightful queen, and mine own blood besides, and Arryn on her mother's side. In this world of men, we women must band together. The Vale and its knights shall stand with her. Her grace will grant me one request. When the prince asked what that might be, she answered, dragons. I have no fear of armies. Many and more have broken themselves against my bloody gate, and the Eyrie is known to be impregnable. But you have descended on us from the sky, as Queen Visenya once did during the conquest, and I was powerless to halt you. I mislike feeling powerless. Send me dragon riders. And so the prince agreed, and Lady Jean knelt before him and bade her warriors to kneel, and all swore him their swords. Daemon Targaryen's dream features him being intimate with a Targaryen woman who praises him over Viserys and acknowledges his strength and worthiness for the Iron Throne. The unsettling twist comes when she whispers to Daemon that he's her favorite son. Alyssa Targaryen has had virtually no mention in the show, but she holds a significant place in the Targaryen family history. She was the daughter of King Jaehaerys I and Queen Alysanne Targaryen. Daemon's mother was wedded to her older brother, Balon the Brave, and Alyssa was the initial rider of Rhaenys' dragon, Meleys, while Balon controlled Vhagar before Lyanna. Alyssa met her demise due to childbirth complications after giving birth to her third son. Daemon's Riverland adventures were a lot more fun and didn't involve any isolated hallucinations in Harrenhal. In Fire and Blood, Daemon's mere presence and treating with the River Lords quickly had many of them pledge their allegiance to Rhaenyra. So much so that even the Tullys of Riverrun joined Daemon. However, despite having Daemon waste so many episodes doing nothing, him betraying and ultimately beheading Blackwood was an interesting end to the Riverlords plotline, even if it took forever to get there. Daemon Targaryen shocks everyone by revealing his desire to claim the throne for himself, going against his wife Rhaenyra Targaryen. In the books, while Daemon and Rhaenyra's relationship does face challenges, he would never have tried to usurp her in the books. Importantly, Daemon always backed Rhaenyra's claim to the Iron Throne from Harrenhal. However, in the show, Daemon's visions reinforce his belief that he is the rightful heir to the throne. With the support of his dragon, an army, and a stronghold, he is ready to seize what he believes is rightfully his. However, hopefully the show keeps him loyal to Rhaenyra, since one of Book Daemon's best quality is his loyalty to his brother and niece at the expense of power and position. Arguably the most impactful moment of House of the Dragon Season 2 finale was Daemon getting access to visions from Bloodraven and notably seeing a preview of the Long Winter as well as Daenerys Targaryen in the future with her 3 hatched dragons. This is completely a show-only invention as there are no future Targaryens mentioned in Fire and Blood. However, what doesn't make any sense is that Bloodraven isn't born yet, and unlike Bran, he can't time travel, so it's not really clear why this happened. George R.R. Martin's favourite Targaryen is Daemon Targaryen from House of the Dragon. Rather than the likes of Daenerys, Aegon the Conqueror, Rhaenyra, or even Rhaegar Targaryen, Martin revealed the Rogue Prince as his favourite in an interview due to his love of grey characters. He's a notoriously bad character, a rogue in every sense of the word. He's very colourful and unpredictable character. I think he has to rank up there as my favourite. Daemon is a proficient and dangerous war leader, whereas in the show, he was kind of a bumbling idiot. So in Season 2 of House of the Dragon, Blood is a gold cloak that Daemon hires to assassinate Aemond. But in the books, Blood was not actually a member of the City Watch. Instead, he was a former sergeant of the City Watch who had lost his gold cloak for beating an to death, whilst in a drunken rage. Daemon and Mysaria gave him and Cheese explicit instructions to kill one of Aegon's children and not botch the job by going for Aemond. This was more to send a message to the Greens that blood will be paid back for blood. Moreover, even though Blood got caught in the books, Cheese didn't, and there is a crazy theory that Larys, who uses rats, was involved in the killing of Helaena and Aegon's son.
Should Daemon Blackfyre have been king of Westeros? Daemon was the legitimized bastard son of Aegon IV Targaryen, but interestingly, his mother was also a Targaryen, Princess Daena Targaryen, wife to Baelor the Blessed. And so, Daemon was not only a legitimized bastard, he also looked completely like a Targaryen, with some saying he looked like Aegon the Conqueror, especially compared to the lawful heir Daeron, who had more Dornish features thanks to his mother. Daemon was also gifted the Valyrian steel sword Blackfyre, once held by Aegon the Conqueror by his father, which was basically a decree by Aegon IV that he should be next to rule. He was skilled in battle, tall, brave, and charismatic, and also had the support of half of Westeros, with many houses resenting Dorne being brought into the fold and their growing presence at court. While Daemon resented the status of being a bastard,
He was initially loyal to Daeron and had to be pushed to start his rebellion by other lords. Chivalry cost Daemon Blackfyre the Iron Throne. During the Battle of Redgrass Field between King Daemon and Daeron, Daemon was undefeatable with Blackfyre in his hand. He slew Wyll Waynwood, the Knight of Nine Stars, before coming upon Sir Gawain Corbry of the Kingsguard. A famous fight took place between the two with Valyrian steel swords, with Daemon wielding Blackfyre and Gawain using Lady Forlorn, before Daemon managed to severely injure his opponent, leaving him blind and bleeding. Daemon paused then to make sure no more injury came to Sir Gawain, ordering Red Tusk to carry Gawain back to the maesters in the rear. However, it has been argued that if Daemon had not stopped for Gawain, he might have broken Maekar's left before Bloodraven had gained the ridge and showered Daemon with arrows, dishonorably targeting Daemon's sons because he knew Daemon would not abandon them, ensuring the end of Daemon's line, killing his children. But had Daemon pressed his advantage, he could have killed Baelor Targaryen and continued his march on King's Landing with little opposition. Then, instead of Baelor taking Dunk's side in the Trial of Seven, it might have been Daemon Blackfyre of House Targaryen. Criston Cole might be the father of Rhaenyra's eldest son, Jace. The show also hints at the possibility by giving Jace straight brown hair, while his two younger brothers, Luke and Joffrey, have curly brown hair that is similar to Harwin Strong. We also never see Rhaenyra drink the moon tea she was given at the end of episode 4, and it seems as though Rhaenyra marries Laenor shortly thereafter, meaning she might have been pregnant with Jace during episode 5. The evidence from the book has Harwin Strong breaking his collarbone right around the same time Rhaenyra gets pregnant with Jace, and right around the time Criston Cole asks Rhaenyra to run away with him. Jace unwittingly got his own brother killed when he told his mother, "We should bear those messages," he said. "Dragons will win the lords over quicker than ravens." His brother, Lucerys, agreed, insisting that he and Jace were men, or near enough to make no matter. "Our uncle calls us Strongs, but when the lords see us on Dragonback, they will know that for a lie. Only Targaryens ride dragons." Mushroom tells us that the sea snake grumbled at this, insisting that the three boys were Valyrians, yet he smiled as he said it, with pride in his voice. Even young Joffrey chimed in, offering to mount his own dragon, Tyraxus, and join his brothers. Queen Rhaenyra forbade that. Joff was but 11. But Jacaerys was 14, Lucerys 13, bold and handsome lads, skilled in arms who had long served as squires. "If you go as messengers, not as knights," she told them. "You must take no part in any fighting." Both boys agreed. This is what happened when Jace met Cregan Stark. The text tells us that Vermax carried Jaehaerys Valyrion to Winterfell to negotiate with its formidable young lord, Cregan Stark. When the Prince of Dragonstone arrived, autumn was well underway, yet Cregan welcomed Jaehaerys warmly. The harsh northern climate made Vermax ill-tempered, so the prince did not stay long among the northerners. However, Cregan and Jaehaerys quickly grew fond of each other, as the boy prince reminded Cregan of his own younger brother, who had died 10 years earlier. They drank, hunted, and trained together, ultimately swearing an oath of brotherhood sealed in blood. Cregan Stark and Jaehaerys Valyrion reached an accord and signed and sealed the agreement that Grand Maester Munkin calls the Pact of Ice and Fire in his true telling. Like many such pacts, it was to be sealed with a marriage between the two men's children when they came of age. Jace is reported to have cheated on Baelor with Cregan's sister, who is a Lyanna Stark clone. Jace had been betrothed to his cousin Baelor since he was 4 and she was 2. And even though it seems very unlikely he would break such a solemn oath to marry a supposed half-wild, unwashed northern bastard named Sarah Snow, this kind of matches the story of Rhaegar and Lyanna falling in love despite both of them being meant for other people. Lord Cregan's son, Rickon, was a year old. Prince Jacaerys was as yet unmarried and childless, but it was assumed that he would sire children of his own once his mother sat the Iron Throne. Under the terms of the pact, the prince's firstborn daughter would be sent north at the age of 7, to be fostered at Winterfell until such time as she was old enough to marry Lord Cregan's heir to bind the two houses together. Supposedly Jaehaerys slept with and married Cregan Stark's bastard sister. Mushroom tells us there was a young maiden whom he calls the Wolf Girl, named Sarah Snow. Prince Jaehaerys was so captivated by this girl, a bastard daughter of the late Lord Rickon Stark, that he spent the night with her. When Lord Cregan learned that his guest had taken the maidenhead of his bastard sister, he was furious. His anger only subsided when Sarah Snow revealed that the prince had married her. They had exchanged vows in Winterfell's Godswood before a heart tree, and only then had she given herself to him, wrapped in furs amidst the snows under the watchful eyes of the old gods. Though this tale is charming, like many of Mushroom's stories, it seems more like a salacious imagination than anything historical. However, it does mirror the story of Rhaegar and Lyanna quite a bit. This is what Jace Valyrian offered to the Dragon Seeds to fight for his mother, Rhaenyra. Prince Jaehaerys vowed that any man who could master a dragon would be granted lands and riches and dubbed a knight. His sons would be ennobled, his daughters wed to lords, and he himself would have the honor of fighting beside the Prince of Dragonstone against the pretender Aegon II Targaryen and his treasonous supporters. Jace has a massive hatred to allowing non-Targaryens to become dragon riders, which is a character trait he did not possess in the books. It seems to stem from his own insecurity of being a strong, and that if they start allowing more non-Targaryens to become dragon riders, then his claim to be king of the Seven Kingdoms will be called into question. Because, like these new low-born bastards claiming the title of Dragon Lords, he himself could be viewed as nothing more than a bastard claiming the title of king with no rightful claim. Not only that, but these new dragon riders will have dragons bigger than his and would be able to overpower him in a contest for the throne. He also seems to not like the small folk and despises the idea of them rising up out of their station to become dragon lords, which makes him feel like a real gatekeeper and up himself. Corlys made an alliance with the Sea Lord of Braavos by promising his daughter Laena to the Sea Lord's son at the age of 12. However, the Sea Lord died before they could wed, and the son soon proved a wastrel and a fool, squandering his family's wealth and power before turning up on Driftmark. Lacking a graceful means to rid himself of the embarrassment, but unwilling to proceed with the marriage, Lord Corlys had repeatedly postponed the wedding. By now, Laena had grown into a beautiful woman. Corlys then might have arranged for Daemon to become smitten with his daughter in the hope of getting dragon-riding grandchildren. However, the exiled Braavosi son remained an impediment, but not for long. Daemon mocked him to his face so savagely, the boy had no choice but to call him to defend his words with steel. Armed with Darksister, the prince made short work of his rival and married Laena 2 weeks later. Corlys and Rhaenys always supported Rhaenyra for queen and didn't need to be convinced at all. After Aegon declared himself king, Corlys immediately declared his strength for Rhaenyra. The book reads, "Though the sea snake had grown old, he liked to say that he was clinging to life, like a drunken sailor clinging to the wreckage of a sunken ship. Mayhaps the Seven have preserved me for this one last fight." With Lord Corlys came his wife, Princess Rhaenys, 5 and 50, her face lean and lined, her black hair streaked with white, yet fierce and fearless as she had been at 2 and 20. The queen who never was, Mushroom calls her. Those who sat at the Black Council knew full well that King Aegon would name them traitors. Each had already received a summons from King's Landing, demanding they present themselves to the new king. All their hosts combined could not match the power the Hightowers alone could field. Corlys Valyrian was furious at Rhaenyra after Rook's Rest and the death of his wife Rhaenys Targaryen to Aemond. Queen Rhaenyra was faring badly. The death of her son Lucerys had been a crushing blow to a woman already broken by pregnancy, labor, and stillbirth. When word reached Dragonstone that Princess Rhaenys had fallen, angry words were exchanged between the Queen and Lord Valyrian, who blamed her for his wife's death. "It should have been you," the sea snake shouted at her grace. "Staunton said to you, yet you left it to my wife to answer and forbade your sons to join her. For all the castle knew that the princes Jace and Joff had been eager to fly with Princess Rhaenys to Rook's Rest with their own dragons. However, had they gone, they most likely would have just died. Instead, Rhaenyra should have either deployed all her dragons for an attack or none. But sending one dragon rider was stupid. Marilda, the mother of Adam and Ellen, was still 16 when she gave birth to Adam in 114 AC, and barely 18 when Ellen followed in 115. Small and quick as their mother, these bastards of Hull were both silver of hair and purple of eye, and soon proved to have sea salt in their blood as well, growing up in their grandsire's shipyard and going to sea as shipboys before the age of 8. When Adam was 10 and Ellen 9, their mother inherited the yards upon her own father's death, sold them, and used the coin to take to the sea herself as the mistress of a trading cog she named Mouse. A canny trader and daring captain, by 130 AC, Marilda of Hull owned 7 ships, and her bastard sons were always serving on one or the other. That Adam and Ellen were dragon seed no man could doubt, though their mother steadfastly refused to name their father. Corlys was afraid to admit that Adam and Ellen were his children. This is because, unlike in the TV show, Mushroom tells us Corlys' wife, Princess Rhaenys, had the fiery temperament of many Targaryens and would not have taken kindly to a lord husband fathering bastards on a girl half her age and a shipwright's daughter besides. Therefore, his lordship had prudently ended his shipyard tryst with Marilda after Ellen's birth, commanding her to keep her boys far from court. Only after the death of Princess Rhaenys did Lord Corlys at last feel able to bring his bastard safely forward. In this instance, it must be said, the tale told by the fool seems more likely than the versions offered by Septon Eustace and Grand Maester Monken, who claimed the boys were Lenore's. However, many and more at Queen Rhaenyra's court knew that the boys were Corlys. The show probably changed this so Rhaenys wouldn't come off as being like Catelyn Stark. Corlys' arc this season has been underwhelming. He begins the season mourning Lucerys and worrying about the succession of House Balerion. He offers the role of heir to Baela, but she refuses him. He hasn't asked anyone else, just held awkward conversations with Alan and Adam for several episodes. As Hand of the Queen, the only major advice he has given Rhaenyra is to not underestimate Dreamfire and Tessarion, which is advice she could have gotten from anyone. Hopefully he'll be more active in the next season. Rhaenyra, Daemon, and Laena might have slept with each other. After the birth of their daughters in Pentos, Daemon and Laena returned to High Tide, where Rhaenyra would visit them frequently. It was during this time that Rhaenyra betrothed her 2 eldest sons, Jace and Luke, to Daemon and Laena's daughters, Baela and Rhaela. So, unlike in the show, Rhaenyra did not offer to betroth her heir and spare to Rhaenys' grandchildren in return for Rhaenys' support in the dispute for High Tide, but rather because she was very fond of Laena, who, at the time, was said to be one of the most beautiful women in Westeros. Laena Velaryon was considered to be one of the most beautiful women in Westeros. This was after Viserys had chosen not to marry her, but had he made the choice between her and Alicent after she had taken Vhagar to ride at the age of 14, that might have resulted in a different outcome, and the dance could have been between Laena, instead of Alicent, and Rhaenyra. Laena was beautiful like her mother and adventurous like her father. By 2 and 20, Laena had grown into a tall, slender, and beautiful woman. According to Mushroom, the court fool, she was almost as pretty as her brother. However, Laena loved to fly, and according to the Maester of Driftmark, she showed far more interest in flying than in boys. But she was smitten with Daemon Targaryen, who was the only male dragon rider in the world, besides her brother at the time. Laena's death was more tragic than her being burned alive by her dragon as a last act of defiance against death. Instead, as her condition steadily worsened, despite the best efforts of Driftmark's young Maester, Prince Daemon flew to Dragonstone and brought back Princess Rhaenyra's own maester, an older and more experienced man renowned for his skills as a healer. Sadly, Maester Gerardus came too late. After 3 days of delirium, Lady Laena passed from this mortal coil. She was but 27. During her final hour, it is said, Lady Laena rose from her bed, pushed away the scepters praying over her, and made her way from her room, intent on reaching Vhagar that she might fly one last time before she died. Her strength failed her on the tower's steps, however. Her husband, Prince Daemon, carried her back to her bed, so unlike the show, she couldn't get her last wish before dying. There is a theory that Rhaenyra might have had a hand in Laena's death. In 119 AC, Laena found she was with child again. Rhaenyra flew to Driftmark to attend her during the birth, and so it was that the princess was at her good sister's side on the 3rd day of that accursed year 120 AC, the year of the Red Spring. A day and a night of labor left Laena Velaryon pale and weak, but finally she gave birth to the son Prince Daemon had so long desired. But the babe was twisted and malformed and died within the hour, nor did his mother long survive him. Her grueling labor had drained all of Lady Laena's strength, and grief weakened her still further, making her helpless before the onset of childbed fever. Afterward, Mushroom tells us, Princess Rhaenyra sat vigil with Daemon over Lady Laena's corpse, and comforted him in his grief. So Rhaenyra might have poisoned Laena with the malformed child to steal her husband and have Daemon kill her own husband, Lenore. It wasn't Rhaenyra's idea to marry Lenore. Instead, Fire and Blood tells us the best choice, King and Small Council finally agreed, would be Rhaenyra's cousin Lenore Velaryon. Thus was the match decided. King and Council had neglected to consult the princess, however, and Rhaenyra proved to be very much her father's daughter. The princess knew much and more about Lenore Velaryon, and had no wish to be his bride. My half-brothers would be more to his taste, she told the king, and though his grace reasoned with her, pleaded with her, shouted at her, and called her an ungrateful daughter, no words of his could budge her, until the king brought up the question of succession. What a king had done, a king could undo, Viserys pointed out. She would wed as he commanded, or he would make her half-brother Aegon his heir in place of her. At this, the princess's will gave way. The Small Council and Viserys were the ones to betroth Lenore to Rhaenyra. However, during the discussion, one objection was raised. Lenore Velaryon was now 19 years of age, yet had never shown any interest in women. Instead, he surrounded himself with handsome squires of his own age, and was said to prefer their company. But Grand Maester Mellows dismissed this concern. What of it? He said. I do not like the taste of fish, but when fish is served, I eat it. Now, it is theorized that Mellos is working for the Hightowers and knows by procuring this match for Rhaenyra, Lenore won't be able to get her pregnant with children, or, even if Rhaenyra has children, there will always be whispers that the children are not actually Lenore's, but bastards. This is another hint that the Maesters are trying to stir up a Targaryen civil war and kill all the dragons. Daemon and Rhaenyra didn't try to kill Lenore, since this is what really happened. Lenore was slain whilst attending a fair in Spicetown, stabbed to death by his friend and companion Sir Carl Corey. The two men had been quarrelling loudly before blades were drawn. Merchants at the fair told Lord Velaryon when he came to collect his son's body. Corey had fled by them, wounding several men who tried to hinder him. However, what was more likely is Lenore died because of a gambling debt caused by Carl, who was described as a household knight of relatively low birth, known to have a lord's taste and a peasant's purse, and was given to extravagant wagering besides. So Carl and Lenore were quarreling about Carl's gambling debts, and the men who tried to hinder Carl were the debtors. And afterwards, they claimed it was Carl who killed Lenore to save themselves from Lord Corley's wrath, and properly disposed of Carl. Only when Prince Jacaerys put out the call for new dragon riders did Marilda at last break her silence, claiming that her boys, Adam and Alan, were the natural sons of the late Sir Laenor Velaryon. They had his look, it was true, and Sir Lenore had been known to visit the shipyard in Hull from time to time. Nonetheless, many on Dragonstone and Driftmark were skeptical of Marilda's claim, for Lenore Valerion's disinterest in women was well remembered. None dared name her liar, however, for it was Lenore's own father, Lord Corlys himself, who brought the boys to Prince Jacaerys for the sowing. Having outlived all his children and suffered the betrayal of his nephews and cousins, the sea snake seemed more than eager to accept these newfound grandsons. And when Adam of Hull mounted Sir Lenore's dragon, Seasmoke, it seemed to prove the truth of his mother's claim. However, as we know in the show, these boys are Corlys.